Thank you for joining Crossroads Nazarene Church for online worship, where we are currently enjoying the teaching series, Stepping Stones to Christ's Likeness. For more information about Crossroads, please visit our website at cvcrossroads.com. There, you can find out more about our church, online giving, and small groups. You can also find us on Facebook at CV Crossroads.
Good morning. Grateful to have this opportunity once again. Pastor and Patty are out of town. Just prayers for them as they spend some time with family, celebrating the life of her father. Jesus, I thank you for this time this morning. I just pray you prepare our hearts. Prepare our hearts for the message. May it be your words, not mine, Lord, that are heard today. May your Spirit guide me, and may your Spirit just allow these words of your Scripture to sink in, the example of your Son, Jesus. May it be real, may it be evident, and may it be empowering to each one of us. So after being a teacher for 18 years, I'm going to start this out with what's called the learning pyramid. It's on the top of your message notes. It's on the screen here as well, but it just talks about, as far as learning goes, what makes that learning sink in, what makes it retain. So the retention rate is what the percentages are on there. And although me talking to you as I am right now is probably the worst method to deliver it, I think it's important to recognize how this learning, how this understanding can be developed. You can see only 5% retention rate if all you do is listen to a lecture. If you read about it, it's 10%, so start reading more. Audio visual, so if you watch a video and there's an audio with it, that helps a little bit. We're up to about 20% retention and understanding. If you see a demonstration of it actually working, which, praise the Lord, Jesus does for us, and we'll look at that a lot today, you retain about 30% of that. But once you get into this kinesthetic, right, of the actual doing, it just raises a ton. So discussion, like discussing with other people, thinking, talking, speaking up, listening is that discussion part of it that helps. Practice doing it, actually doing what we talk about, taking the information and putting it into action. That's where it becomes more real and understandable. And then ultimately what God has us do as well is teach others, right? And it's undeniable. When you're able to teach others, your understanding of that information is far greater. So I preface this whole thing, and just a reminder to all of us is if all we do is show up on Sundays or we click the link and listen, we're just listening to this lecture. The amount that we retain is so small compared to if we do something with it, we have conversation with it. And it's pretty amazing how Jesus actually demonstrates this so perfectly in Matthew 11. We're going to touch on it a couple times today as well, the discussion, the practice doing, and the teaching of others as well. So as I was preparing this message over the last week, especially, but a couple weeks too, I do want to put a quick plug in here. This book right here has been a huge influence. John Mark Comer, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, crazy powerful, especially in the times that we are now with this hurry, 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 which we'll be talking about today. So I won't do this book justice, but this was a pretty big influence on what we're going to be talking about today. And really what we're going to be talking about is this hurry, this rush, this noise that's constantly around us, and I think in our hearts as well. I think it's just that chaos, that noise, and I believe that amongst the noise, the only difference between noise and music is that there's an intention, there's a purpose to that. And I think that God has this music within all the noise that we're in. It's just that we haven't tuned our ears to hear that and eliminate the distractions of the other noises that doesn't help us to hear what God has to say to us. So I'm going to start with a little activity. You can see your message notes, or if you don't have those, that's fine too. Get a piece of paper and something to write with. What I've written on there, on the screen here, it says, I will give you rest. This is coming from Matthew 11, verses 28 to 30. I think this applies to literally every single one of us. It says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. So I took that phrase there, I will give you rest. Then I have the numbers 1 through 16 written out. We're gonna do this twice. Trial 1, and don't go till I say so, and I'll time it. But trial 1, what I want you to do is, in the top box, write out the phrase, I will give you rest. The box underneath that, I want you to write down every single number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's all you got to do. Top box, write the words. Next box, write the numbers. Okay, everybody ready? Grab your pencil. If you don't have a pencil, pause it. Come back, hit play. Are you ready? And go. Top box, you're going to write, I will give you rest. Bottom box, every single number, 1 through 16. I think I did it in about 16 seconds. I'm going to start calling off. We're at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I'm assuming you're probably done by now. Next, what I'm going to have you do is the same thing but a different order. So as you can see, I want you to write, you're going to end up with the same product, right? But instead of writing out all the words and all the numbers, you're going to write out the letter I in the top box and number 1 in the bottom box. Then you're going to write a W in the top and a 2 in the bottom, an I in the top, a 3 in the bottom, an L in the top, a 4 in the bottom, an L in the top, a 5 in the bottom. So you're going to alternate between letter and number and do the same thing again. All right, so the boxes are going to look the same. Second one's probably going to be a little bit more messy, but we'll see how it goes. Are you ready? Set. Go. Quickly, efficiently follow the rules. Alternate between letter, number. We're at about 16, 17, 18 seconds, 19, 20, 1, 22, 23, 4, 25, 6, 7, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. All right, I'm assuming you're close to done. If not, I'm sure your penmanship is far better than mine. Next up, we're going to come back to that. I'm going to mute my phone. Sorry about that. Next up, I want you to go to the next part. We're going to connect these two. I want you to take this self-assessment. With your best and most honest reflection, on average, each day of the week, how many hours per day do you actually spend on the following? You can see a list there. So on average, these should add up to pretty close to 24. How many hours do you sleep? How many hours are you working at a job or you're at school? How many hours a day? Sorry, this is per day. How many hours a day are you eating or preparing food? How many hours a day are you doing your daily chores or responsibilities, typically around the house? How much time are you intentionally and actively spending with God? How much time are you intentionally and actively spending with family or friends? How much time do you spend each day exercising? Or personal time on the computer or phone or apps? So this could be browsing different websites. This could be shopping online, which has become quite the American pastime. This could be on different apps. How much time do you spend reading or listening to music? How much time do you spend each day watching TV or movies or playing video games? I left a couple other options there. I want you to total that up. And you could do half of an hour in total each day. I want you to assess that. It's in this time of reflection that we look back before we move forward that I think it's important. What have I been doing? What do I typically do? And then asking ourselves, is that what I want to be committed to? If you're still going, you can pause it. If you're done, here's the next part. A couple things. I want you to put a little smiley face next to the one activity that you're most happy about. The amount of time you're spending on that makes you happy. It makes you proud. You're smiling. Next up, I want you to find 3 things. And circle those 3 things that you'd like to spend more time doing, that you wish you had more time for those 3 activities. Next, put a little asterisk next to intentional time with God and intentional time with family and friends. Next, I want you to put an asterisk next to each of the other things that you spend your time on while you're also spending time with God and spending time with family and friends. For instance, most likely, you could put an asterisk next to personal time with the computer, phone, or your apps. I'm not going to lie, this, as I'm talking to people, is far too common than I want it to be. Far too common. Maybe watch movies or TV or play games, and it's time with family. And that may be true, like no knock on it, but what other things are you doing when you're saying you're spending time with people? And is it that dedicated time? So there's this whole idea of multitasking. Oh, I'm good at multitasking, which is a complete lie, by the way. You're not. If we look at this, if we look at the I will give you rest, numbers 1 through 16, to complete both of those tasks, which is to write the words and then write the numbers, you did it in 2 different ways. You dedicated it to one thing, focusing on one thing, and then the next thing and completing that as well. Most likely the second time it took you a lot longer because you were trying to, quote, multitask and do 2 things at once. Now, if we're making dinner and listening to music at the same time, that's different than the things that actually matter more significant in our lives, like spending time with God, spending time with family, but we're also watching TV. We're also on our phones. We're also doing all these other different things where we know that if I'm having a conversation with you and I'm right here, it's become routine. It's become habit. It's this busyness. It's this chaos that we're actually inviting and we're creating with that. So the question is, what inputs, what time are you spending that you're happy with? And I want more smiley faces on there than double asterisks with everything else. So the issue is that we're busy. We're crazy busy as Americans, I think more so than ever, because of the ease of access to so many different things. Like we literally have infinity in our front right pocket here. And it's so easy to find things. So we get frustrated, right? We get frustrated when we can't find those things. Are you overcommitted? Are you tired? Are you too busy? Do you wish you had more time? Or do you wish you had less to do? Because I think that the truth of it is, if I had more time, I would fill it up with more stuff, and I wish I'd have more time instead of refining, boiling those things down to what matters rather than what more can I do. Especially in our world now, things that have become so unpredictable and so chaotic, so out of our control, but we want to fix things, right? And things are so easy to get that we just, when they aren't easy, we get frustrated, right? We want answers to questions now. We want truth from the confusion now. We want this community and this togetherness amidst this ever-increasing isolation and division. There's so many things that are overwhelming in our world with politics, with COVID and masks and vaccines, with freedom and stuff in the military and gun control and abortion and perspectives on gender and censorship, supply chains, on and on. We can make a huge, depressing list of all these things that are out of control that we want solutions to, but we don't know how. And it's this noise that we have in our lives, this noise that completely surrounds us, that we allow to overwhelm us. But God says we need some quiet time. We need some quiet time with Him where we can start to hear this music, we can start to hear this rhythm and this beauty that we can dance to rather than the noise that we want to run from. What we need is not an escape from our circumstances. I think a lot of times we try to look for those circumstances to change rather than changing ourselves to better address and move forward in the circumstances. One more time, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Jesus says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Have you ever been in the line at the grocery store, a line to get gas, or the line at a stoplight, and you look around and you look at the size of people's carts and you look at the person running the cash register and you're like, I'm going to go here because there's less and she looks fast. But then we get in that line. I don't know if you've seen the movie Office Space. It's a funny movie. But anyways, we pick a line, right? And then we look over and they're like, oh, they're moving faster. And then we get this frustration because it's like, well, I should have just stayed there. And then we start to like grumble and get a little irritable over in this line here. Because, and it's silly, like we look back on it, it's like, why am I so upset? And it comes down to, I could have gotten out of the store 53 seconds earlier because that dude with the ugly shirt is getting out of here before you are. Like it's crazy how this speed of things just throws us off. But maybe God put you in that slow lane to slow down yourself. Maybe God put you in that lane so you could actually take a break and talk to the person ahead of you, or say hi to the cashier, ask her how her day's going. I just feel like they're so overlooked, but so underappreciated, to just greet somebody, and say, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for what you're doing. Maybe it's to talk to those people, or maybe, heaven forbid, we take that time to take a deep breath and we realize that there's a lot of good that God's given me. We take that breath when we're waiting in line, and instead of looking around, we look within, and we take that breath. We thank God for two things. Thank you, God, for this day. Thank you that I can buy this stuff. Thank you that I have a home to go home to. Thank you that you said you'll never leave me or forsake me. Thank you that you love me no matter what. That changes our perspectives, right? So instead of this wasted time of 2 minutes, I could have gotten out of here sooner, that could have been, and hopefully that turns into this 2 minutes where you connect with God beyond your designated 15 minutes when you wake up, right? When we start to integrate God into more of our lives. So looking through the Gospels, there's chaos, right? And Jesus, it's not like Jesus just sat around and it's like, I'm just going to rest today. God didn't make him just to rest, and his perspective of rest is different than what most of us see as rest. Jesus was a busy man. He was healing people. He was bringing sight back to the blind. He was bringing people back from sickness, healing lepers. He was doing all kinds of stuff. Busy, 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 busy. He was crazy busy. But as it says quite a few times in Scripture, starting back in Matthew 3, 17 through 4:1, this is right after Jesus was baptized. So John the Baptist came in and baptized Jesus. And he's like, whoa, you should be baptizing me, Jesus. And he's like, no, you baptize me. After Jesus was baptized, he comes out of the water. A voice from heaven said, "This is my Son whom I love. With him I am well pleased." That'd be great to hear that, huh? But it's what God's saying to us too. When we baptize, when we're obedient, God says, "This is my child whom I love. They trust me. With them I'm well pleased." It's a beautiful thing to hear. But then you read the next line. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, cool, and tempted by the devil. So the first thing after Jesus is like, yes, God, I will be baptized. I know this is what you want me to do. I know this is the example that you want me to set. And then the first thing he does is like, all right, just head out, wilderness. Yeah, devil's going to go out there. He's going to tempt you. He's like, well, I can't even get a hug. He's like, no, head out. Now, I don't think Jesus, maybe he was. Maybe he was a little nervous. But I think the part we need to recognize here is that he went into the wilderness, and this is a reference that comes back many times as we go down, as we go through the Bible. But he went away into the wilderness by himself. But I want you to recognize this. The last thing that God told him was, "You are my son. I love you. With you I am pleased." I coached cross country up at Douglas at the high school for 12 years. It was great. It was a life-changing experience for me, and I know for others as well. One of the things we talked about and that we coached was at the starting line, right before the race started, before that gun goes off. One of the most crucial things that we need to do is choose the last thought that's in our head. And it has to be a positive thought going into it, because that positive thought often, that last thought is often the thought that sticks in our heads, positive or negative. This is going to hurt, I hope I don't lose, is one thing, or I'm probably going to lose, or they're probably going to beat me. That will change the outcome of a race compared to I'm ready. We had this little chant that we do, and kids would circle around, and I'd yell, and I'd always lose my voice, but I'd yell and I'd say, "Where do we live?" And they say, "Paradise." I say, "How do we feel?" And they say, as a team, "Amazing." I say, "Who's the strongest?" And everyone raises their hand in confidence, and they yell, "I am." I say, "Who are we?" We say, DCC, Douglas Cross Country. And we get to the line and we go. But that last positive thought, no matter what we're doing, whether it's a race, whether it's an interview, whether it's just another day at work, it's that last positive thought of confidence. This is what God gave to Jesus before he went into the wilderness by himself. He fasted for 40 days. Talk about hangry at that point. To be tempted by the devil, but the last positive thought that God gives him is, "You are my son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." And in essence, this is God saying, "Hey, listen, I know this is going to be hard for you. I love you. I wouldn't put you into this situation to be defeated, to lose, to be the victim. I put you in this because I believe I have equipped you to be victorious through all this. You're going to be tempted. You're going to be tired. You're going to be hungry. But you're going to be the victor in this because you're my son. And I wouldn't do that to you. I love you. And I'm well pleased." And you ask, like, what made God well pleased with Jesus at this point? It was as simple as he's like, "Hey, God, I'm gonna go get baptized now." He's like, "Oh, all right. That's cool. Thank you for trusting me and just being obedient," right? It's that simple obedience. Now, when he went into the wilderness, Satan tempted him. He said, "Hey, here's some food. Just take this food. I know you're fasting, Jesus, but here's some food. I'll give you what you want to take away this discomfort." But Jesus didn't choose the easy. He didn't choose the comfortable. He chose the obedience to what God was calling him to. He said, no, he says, Jesus says, "Man doesn't live on bread alone, but every word that God gives him." Satan takes him up onto a hill, and he says, "Look at all the kingdoms of the land here. I'll give you all these." And then with a few words, like 4 words, Jesus shakes his head and he says, "Away from me, Satan. It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." And guess what Satan did? He went away. Like that simple. He's like, I can't get this Jesus guy. I offered him everything. Jesus, although he could have had everything, it's not the everything that God wanted him to have. He didn't want to take the easy route. He wanted to take the godly route of doing it the way God had him, what God created him for. So let's look at that again. "Away from me, Satan," he says, "it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." Let's look at the word worship and serve. When we worship, when we serve, it's the things that we give our attention to. It's what we give our heart to, what we give our eyes to, what we give our mind to. Go back to that self-assessment of the things you have a choice in how you spend your time. Is it to worship? Is it to serve? Or is it to find comfort? Is it to find ease? Worship the Lord your God and serve him only, is what Jesus said. And we're tempted by Satan every day. When we go out, we're tempted by the devil to take the easy route to find the comfort, or we could take the route that God is calling us to, this yoke that we'll hit on again in here in a second. Anyways, it's this wilderness idea. Jesus goes to the wilderness that he touches on in different words multiple times throughout the Gospels. Mark 1:35. After healing Simon's mother-in-law and a whole bunch of people that had a whole bunch of different diseases, he drove out demons. Then it says, very early in the morning, so after this late night, people came after the sun had gone down, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, went to a solitary place where he prayed. Again, he goes back to this wilderness, because I think it was in that wilderness that Jesus realized the victory that he could have with God. In the wilderness, into the solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions, they're like, Jesus, they went around looking everywhere, like, where'd you go? Everyone's looking for you. And he's like, okay, but hey, let's go. He says, let us go somewhere else to the nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I have come, the purpose to preach and give hope to people in a broken world. Luke 5:16, after healing a leper, many crowds came for more healing. Luke 5:16 says, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. After that, he goes and he heals a paralyzed man. Luke 6:12, after healing the man with a shriveled hand, he got some flack from the Pharisees because he did it on the Sabbath. It says, Jesus went out to a mountainside, the wilderness. To do what? To pray. And he spent the night praying to God after all this healing. And you know that, like, emotionally and spiritually, even for Jesus, the Son of God, it had to be exhausting. Because he's saving people's lives. People are coming to him with this hope and this belief that he can save them. And he does. He went out to a mountainside, the wilderness, to pray. He spent the night praying. The next day, he chose the 12 disciples. Matthew 14:10. This is after John the Baptist was beheaded. And they came and told Jesus what had happened. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Then after Jesus landed, he saw a large crowd and had compassion on them and healed their sick. Right? So this is Jesus, the Son of God. He has the power to do all this on his own. But he takes this time to reconnect with God, to reconnect with the source of where all this is coming from, where the guidance is coming from, where the strength is coming from, where the healing is coming from, to reconnect with God. The Father and the Son are one, but he's like, I have to intentionally be one with him. Mark 6:45-47. This is after feeding the 5,000 people with a backpack of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. After that had happened and people were amazed, that the disciples were like, holy cow, look what you just did. They're excited. But immediately, quote, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him while he dismissed the crowd. After leaving them, here it is, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the lake, and he was alone on land. This is when the storm came. The disciples were freaking out. Jesus walked in the water, calmed the storm after this. And then guess what? After he got in the boat, the storm's calm, they landed again, and guess what he did? He started healing again, but he went back to the source, went back to God, that communion with God, the connection with God, the dependence on God in that conversation. If he had a phone, it was probably a flip phone, but he would put it to the side when he talked to people, right? He wouldn't even bring it on the boat. He's like, I left it on shore. But he was focused on them. Anytime he had a conversation, he was looking you in the eye so that you knew that he cared, he loved, he was there intentionally. Matthew 15:29. Then he went up on a mountainside and sat down. I think it all connects, comes back to this initial experience in the wilderness where he was the victor, the first time he was the victor over Satan intentionally trying to tempt him. It's that solitude, it's the mountainside, it's the desert, it's the wilderness where there's no other input, where you don't pick up a book and read this, or you turn on this podcast. It's the direct connection with God. It's like we look at these books, we flip on a podcast, we listen to whatever, we flip on a YouTube video, we flip on some good Christian music. It's like, oh, I need to be inspired by God. What does this person have to say about it? The commentary about that, or the perspective of this in the Bible. And as Lisa told me last night after worship team practice, like, people are asking for an interpreter in a language they already speak, where we can go directly to the source, right? When Jesus asked the disciples, "Who do you say I am?" Before that, he said, "Who do the people say I am?" And he kind of like brushes it off. He's like, okay, but who do you say I am? It's that connection with Jesus directly. And we may not be well practiced on having those prayers, but it's in the solitude where we just sit and we just rest. It's the time with God that we find the greatest fulfillment. It's where we find our greatest peace, our greatest strength, our greatest guidance. It's a time that we intentionally choose to have with Him without distractions of anything else. Purely time with God that He answers us. It's not easy, but it's so crucial. So yesterday, I picked up my daughter Quinn. On Thursdays, we try to, my wife and I take one of the girls, and then we have a little date day. Yes, I took Quinn, my 6-year-old. Keep in mind, 6-year-old. She's preaching right now, by the way. So we go over to Yogurt Beach, grab some yogurt, walk over into Lampy, walking around the park, and I'm just asking her questions. Just kind of hanging out. And I guess unintentionally, but I was doing what Jesus asked us to do, just have these conversations. I was asking her different things. If you could be an animal, what would you be? What's your favorite this, that? And then I asked her, I said, hey, what's your favorite thing about Mom? And my wife's pretty amazing. And this is a pretty good example of that. And Quinn thought about it, 6 years old. So what's your favorite thing about Mom? She looks at me and she said, she spends time with me. The simplicity of that and the connection with this message here. That's what Jesus does. He just wants to spend time with us. So we walk over to it's a little play structure over there, and there's like 7 or 8 slides, and there's ladders and cargo nets, and there's rock walls, and there's all kinds of stuff over there. And I say to Quinn, I'm like, you know what? We're going to follow the leader. I'm just going to go wherever you go. So she smiled. We started going. And this is hard for me because normally I'm pretty task and goal oriented. Like, okay, well, all right, well, what are we here for? Are we gonna hit every single slide here? Are we gonna go in every little part here? Are we gonna try to do this as fast as we can? Like, what are we gonna do? That's just how I think. But God just kind of told me, like, spend time with her. Like, that's her favorite thing. Spend time with her. I'm like, you know what? Let's go. So we went around and we actually went on, I think, literally every slide. We went up and down every single possibility of where we were there. But it was in those times that God just reminded me of so many different things, right? By just spending time with her, just as He wants me to spend time with Him. You can go down slides that are fast. You can go down slides that are swirly and closed. You don't know where they're going other than down. We can go down slides that get little bumps in it or little twists and turns in it. Welcome to life, right? We went through some tunnels that I couldn't even kneel in and crawl through, so I had to pull myself through. but I just wanted to follow Quinn wherever she was going. You know, God doesn't say, Jesus doesn't tell us like, hey, this is going to be easy, this is going to be super fun. It's going to be uncomfortable sometimes. And you got to grasp on anything you can to just get through it. But he's going to turn around just like my 6-year-old does. When I crawled through the tunnel, that took me 5 times longer because I couldn't fit as well. But it's that smile that Quinn gave me and that Jesus gives us as well at the end of that tunnel. It's like, oh, glad you're still here. Thanks for following. There's one part where there's a little bench, like kind of up on the structure, and Quinn goes over and she's like, I like to sit on this bench. So I'm like, I'll sit down and rest, right? That's what God calls us to do too. And I said, why do you like to sit on this bench? She's just like, I just like to look out and we can see the whole park from here. It's pretty. And I'm like, child, you're preaching Sunday. That's what you're doing. I'm like, you know, we take this rest. We have to, right? Instead of like, oh, we got 3 slides to go and that rock, well, I'm putting that off because that one's going to be tough. I don't want to do that quite yet. You know, she's like, just like, look, it's pretty, right? It's like that. That's what God wants us to do too, to like, hey, sit down. I don't care how many things you do in your life. I care that you find peace and rest with me. And I want you to see the beauty of this world, right? And recognize that you're part of the beauty of this world as well. So anyways, we're moseying back to the truck. And I've been working outside, so I get a couple like cuts in my hands. And I'm walking, I have my hand behind my back like this. And Quinn's like slapping my hand and hit me right on one of the cuts. I'm like, hey, maybe let's not do that anymore. So I got this cut on my hand. She's like, oh, she's real sympathetic. She's like, are you okay, Dad? I'm like, I will be. She said, God made me to heal. And then she says, she's like, no, God made you to be with him. I'm like, what? You're right. Like, she didn't even know what I was going to talk about here. But it's that simple. Like, we have all these pains that make our lives uncomfortable. But at the foundation of it all, that's part of the package, right? But God made me, to heal, but one thing that helps me heal is to recognize that God made me to be with him. 6-year-old preaching, y'all. Whew. So I want to come back to this Matthew 11. This is the Message translation, which I think is beautifully said. Are you tired? Worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Oof. We can all relate to that first part. Are you tired? Are you worn out? And I'm going to even touch on this. Are you burned out on religion? Religion is about these rules and these written expectations of what it is to be this and this. But God says Jesus says in the rest of this, like, stop getting hung up on this legalistic garbage about the rules of what you can and can't do. He says, come to me, get away with me, walk with me, work with me, keep company with me. It's all this togetherness, this unity, to find rest with me. Now, when we think rest, when you and I think rest, we're like, I'm going to go take a nap on the couch. When we think rest, we're like, I want to go sit on a beach where it's warm. When we think rest, it's doing nothing. That's not the rest that Jesus is calling us to. He says right here, I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. So when Jesus wants us to find rest, it's not like, hey, go take a nap. I'll see you when you wake up, all groggy. No, he says, like, walk with me. He's like, come with me. We're going somewhere. He says, work with me. But it's this yoke. If we go back to the NIV, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. This yoke is what the oxen used to till the land, right? It connected the two of them when they did work, right? But Jesus says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Basically, he's saying, I'm gonna carry this. This isn't going to hurt you. This isn't going to kill it. Maybe it'll hurt you a little bit. It'll be a little strain, but it's with him. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. Stop trying to carry it yourself is what he's saying. Because it's this togetherness. It's this communion. It's this connection with him that we have these conversations. Of all the things you do, the time you spend in your regular routine, how much of that are you seeking that quiet place, that togetherness, that yoke with Jesus, seeking that company with him as he did with his Father? The same way that he went to his Father in between the amazing things that he did in his life. Prior to doing the next amazing thing, he went to God. That's what he's asking us to do. He says, learn from me. Going back all the way to the first thing I talked about, the learning pyramid. Jesus wrote that thing a long time ago. Because in that 50% retention discussion, he's like, hey, we're going to be like side by side in this yoke. We're going to talk. 75% by practice doing. He's like, hey, learn from me. I'm going to show you side by side. I'm going to show you how to do this so that you can then teach others. Right? It's not just listening to a sermon on Sundays or reading your devotionals for 5 minutes in the morning. You're not doing much of that. If I'm being honest, I'll speak for myself. If that's all I do is read it and be like, all right, got that done. I'm going to go live the rest of my life. Jesus says, stop trying to carry this yoke on your own. I want to do it with you. Because when they till the land, the reason they till that land is that they can plant. Right? It's not for what is like, oh, this is going to be so hard tilling the land. It might be, but look at the results. You know, coming back to these life references, you harness yourself in the yoke to pull the plow, to open the land, to plant the seed, to grow the plant, to provide food, nourishment, to feed the people, not only the mouths, but the hearts of people with this hope of what is yet to come, the seed that's going to die to create new life. That's the hope that we have, not the difficulty of what we're in, but the possibility of what will be. So for you, for me, God gave this to me this week too. I'm just sharing the best I can. It's not about listening and nodding my head. It's not about reading and saying, oh, that's good. It's not about watching some cool video with some animations on YouTube. It's not about seeing how you did it, Jesus. The way this becomes real and this expands the kingdom, it creates hope in this world, is when we do this. We learn by doing in the discomfort that will give us the victory. Going into the wilderness and desiring, yearning for that solitude with God to find his guidance. So my prayer for all of us is this. Jesus, I thank you for the example you give. I thank you for the discussion that we have. Thank you for showing us how to do it. Help us to make this real in our own lives, Lord. Not just for our own peace, but to spread this hope, to spread this love, to be the example of grace to those around us, Lord, because this world needs a greater example more often. Help us to be that light, Jesus. Help us to be that light and that life by seeking you first in all things. We trust you. We believe you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for choosing us to be the victors. In your name, Lord. Amen. Have a great day.